What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sunbelt Syndicate, The Wrap, with Dominick, Crosetto, and Marvin Dickens. I went with the full name, Marv. I don't usually say the full name, though.
It's all right. I feel like I'm in trouble now. If you throw the middle name in there, I would have looked for my mom or something.
Oh, man. Yeah, the good old Southern middle name usage. You knew you were in trouble then, right?
Yeah, that ain't good.
No, definitely not. Well, we are with you from the first kick to the last pitch. I am literally, before this, going to be after this, continuing to push out every single basketball article that Mr. Zach Capps and the rest of our writers have done before we literally tip off basketball season tomorrow night for, I think, 13 of 14 teams in the Sunbelt. So that MAC Sunbelt Challenge is coming up. So, again, we're going to go right from football into basketball. We're going to try not to miss a beat. This show is brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy. Check them out online and on Amazon store to get them delivered right to your door, as well as Phenom Elite. They have a new drop coming. If your kids play football specifically, or any sport where they could use cleats, I guess lacrosse is that kind of cleat need anyway as well. They have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles dropping on Black Friday. So they have a countdown timer and everything. So if your kids or kids you know or are in need of some cleats here soon, I believe they'll probably, what I assume is going to happen is they're going to bring out Donatello, Michelangelo, all of them, color coordinated. So yeah, probably pretty cool if you were a Ninja Turtle fan. So
no, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I was a Turtle fan as a kid growing up, had a couple of the action figures and the big, some of the big stuff like the van almost that they drove around in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The news van, right? Like, I don't know, whatever. It's been a while, but
yeah, I think you're right. It has been a while, but they were, I was a big fan when I was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything that has to do with nostalgia, I'm a fan of. We had a guy at work the other day. No one really one guy dressed up for Halloween, but one guy just wore a shirt from the last blockbuster on planet Earth, I think, which is in Bend, Oregon. Yeah.
I watched a Netflix documentary called like The Last Blockbuster. Pretty interesting.
I mistakenly thought it was in Alaska. Apparently there were two at one time in Alaska that still survived, but now the last one officially is Bend, Oregon, of all places. So
you hear the story about how back in the day Netflix tried to sell to them, and Blockbuster was like, no one would ever want to buy DVDs through the mail. People want the experience of coming in to the store on a Friday night and renting this stuff, and lost opportunities, man.
Yeah, it was. You know what's funny though? I would go back to those days, like right now, right? Just to have something to physically get out of the house and do.
What are you going to play it in?
I know. Yeah. Well, my old school Xbox 360 and my PlayStation 3, I still have. I'll play it in either one of those. But yeah, you imagine just going to a store and like getting a thumb drive to like plug into something to watch a movie.
Dude, my two funny stories real quick. My kids found, you remember the CD visors that you used to put on your visor in your car?
Yeah.
The kids found one of those and like pulled a CD out and they're like, what's this? And we're like, but back in the day, like you didn't know about Napster and LimeWire, but like I think it had like Spring Break 2007 written on it. It's like, what's that? I was like, oh, those were bangers from back in the day. They're like, what do you do with it? And I started thinking, I was like, they've never seen a CD player, not in a car, not at the house. And so then they found our DVD collection. They're like, are these CDs too? I'm like, well, kind of, but not really. They're all movies or shows. They're like, well, what do we play them in? And the same thing as you. I was like, I think you could play them on the PlayStation. I don't know.
That's so funny. I do this thing with my son, speaking of the CDs, which we'd run the satellite radio, right? And you know this, Marv, like if you go through an area where the satellite doesn't get hit, it goes out, but it doesn't have the staticky of the old school radio. So whenever that happens, I'm like, oh, CD skipped. And now I've got him saying it every time. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand, right? Like I've tried to explain. I don't think he fully grasps the meaning and comprehension of what we're talking about. TJ jumping in here, tapes and CDs. Oh man, My first car ever was a cassette player, and that was it. It was a video or a cassette, and there you go.
I thought I was the man when I saved up enough money to go to Circuit City back in the day and have my tape player replaced with a CD player. It's like, cool, we've made it.
Oh yeah, I had this one boombox that would somehow let me record from a CD to the cassette, and then I had a fancy enough cassette player that I could skip songs. You'd hear the whole winding, but like it would skip to the next track if I pressed a certain button. I was advanced. It was a top of the line 88 Honda Accord, guys. So that's what we were working with. Yeah, don't finish that joke, TJ. I'm not sure what that was going to end with, but probably not good. Ben is saying the Red Wolves played aggressive, and Warren is essentially agreeing with him, saying they beat us up on the O-line, 9 sacks, and we will get to some of those games. Yeah. Marv, we're going to start off recapping a Tuesday game, and what's great about this is Marv and I talked last week after going off the air saying, man, I wish we looked ahead and paid better attention, and we could have had a little preview for the Tuesday game since TJ and I don't get to that before that game happens, and we're like, okay, let's go through the rest of the schedule. Oh, wait, that's it. That was the only Tuesday game we have for the rest of the year after that. So we only have Thursdays. We'll be prepared. But Marv, start us out. 52-20 over the Texas State Bobcats. The Dukes won victoriously.
It's the Alonzo Barnett show, as it has been for the season. I mean, 5 total touchdowns, 4 through the air, 264 throwing, added another 98 rushing and another TD. I mean, Dom, he's got to be your sunbelt offensive player of the year right now. Like if the season stopped today, he's got to be it, right?
The only one I have up there with him right now is probably Braylon Braxton. And the only reason that they're so neck and neck, I mean, I agree with you because Barnett's done it in less time, and we know he wasn't really fully healthy to start the year. So he's come along and not dropped off right after this injury. Like it took a week or two to get him fully healthy and be the guy. But Braylon Braxton's been doing it week in and week out. But yes, I mean, you've got a 1-loss team and their only losses to a Power 5 opponent, Power 4 opponent.
I saw they're receiving votes like pretty high up there in both of the polls that came out today. I wouldn't be surprised if, they win next weekend and, a couple things happen in the 20 to 25 range that, we don't see them ranked next week. But I wrote down a note that 4th consecutive week where JMU's defense is not allowed a point in the second half, which is, call it coaching adjustments, call it what it is. But, man, they are just stingy in the second half. You better score as much as you can in the first half because the last month you haven't – pretty much the month of October you haven't scored against them in the second half. So, Alonzo Barnett showed defense playing, shut down in the second half, and Texas State didn't help themselves with 3 interceptions. They only scored in the second quarter. At halftime, it looked like it was going to be a close game, right? It was 28-20 at halftime, and then it just unraveled very, very quickly. And JMU really used the explosive play big time. I got written down here. They had 5 plays of over 25 yards. I think 2 or 3 of those went for touchdowns. So when you got a defense that's going to adjust like that and not give you anything in the second half, and you're getting chunk plays with a guy like Barnett behind the helm, that's a hard team to beat right now.
Yeah, it is very tough. And I want to hammer home the second half note that you had here. This was a tale of 2 halves, not just in this game, not just in the past couple of weeks for JMU, but for this entire week of Sunbelt action. For the winning teams, their second half total points, 71. Okay. The losing team's second half total points in this week's Sunbelt action, just 35 points. So if you don't come to play for all 4 quarters, or you can't heat up as the game goes along like these teams did that won their games, you ain't going to win in the Sunbelt. It's just facts. And some of those games, actually, the losing team did outscore the winning team, but I think that was literally just one game where that happened. That was South Alabama trying to come back on Louisiana. We'll touch on that one, but everybody else got better as the game went along, and those first 2 games, and we'll touch on the second one here now, really hammered home that point in the second half of this one. We'll go ahead with TJ's comment here. Smiley Collier for Heisman as he's taken over the starting quarterback job for Coastal Carolina and just not relinquished it. There's nobody who's going to touch him on the roster right now. He is on fire for what's now known as the Hauntacleers after their Halloween Eve dismantling of Marshall in the second half. We had a great first half yet again, Marv. But
hey, I'm going to hit TJ with a little Lee Corso and say not so fast on the listen, 4 TDs is impressive. Team's rolling, right? Like out of the app game into this game, like they figured out how to score points, but 8 for 20. I don't know if I'm not impressed with him passing quite yet. I know he did well enough against the app, but he did have to carry the ball 22 times. But yeah, I mean, the first half was electric, right? It was like it's one of those like, hey, whoever has the ball last is probably going to win this game. That's kind of the feeling that they had. But man, Coastal trailed 27-17, like very early into the third quarter, and then Marshall didn't score again. Scored 27 unanswered points. Marshall didn't help themselves either. 5 turnovers, 4 consecutive possessions with turnovers in the second half gave Coastal short field. I think they had scoring drives of 3 plays and 2 plays, about a minute and a half apart. And that was just it. It was over after that. But one thing real quick, we talked about on the text thread, those Coastal jerseys the other night. Listen, I give them credit for being bold, right? They got the teal turf, and they've always been a little different down there, and that's okay. That's their thing. But in my opinion, those jerseys were hideous. And even my kids were like, Dad, what is that? And I was like, that is what you call a very, very bad choice. That's not good.
I will say, after the conversation we had with Mike Uva, and I was really pumped up to see the show that this was supposed to be. And there in person, I was told it was pretty good as far as like how they built it up and everything that was going on and the entrance and everything. And it's not just the Sunbelt. I'll have to be honest with that. We also saw Tennessee do their dark mode last night, although they were better with that one. They still didn't show everything they could leading up to the game. Like, this is the pageantry. This is the stuff that makes college football fun and great. As Coastal was about to make their entrance onto the field, first of all, they hadn't touched on any of the jersey stuff on the broadcast, at least not more than like saying that they might have changed jerseys or something like that. Then as the fireworks were going off and that team was making their entrance into the field, they bolt down to a sideline reporter, and you see like this smallest glimpse behind her of the flames going up, and the team, you can't even really see the team running onto the field. And that was like the whole allure of the whole glow-in-the-dark jersey aspect. But also, like, they had the motorcycles. I mean, everything that they could help show off for one of our teams. It doesn't matter that it's Coastal in this. I'm just saying in general, like, show the stuff that people want to see. That's why we tuned in. We heard all this stuff about how it was going to be different and kind of an electric atmosphere, and it was when they first kicked off. But we didn't even see why as viewers, right? Like, luckily we had some background knowledge. Hey, this is what we look for. This is some of the stuff that's going to happen. We're not going to tell you exactly what it is, but we're going to tell you to watch. And then ESPN didn't show any of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were disappointed with that. I was disappointed with that just because, like, I want to see what everyone talked about, what everyone was going to be looking for, and we couldn't literally see it.
Yeah, I think that's an ESPN problem, right? Like, I don't know how much discussion the school has with ESPN. Like, hey, we've got all this stuff, like, showcase it for us. And I don't know if conversations like that happen, but yeah, it was a little disappointing not to be able to see all of it. But hey, ESPN does what ESPN wants to do.
Yeah, I just thought, like, you've got a whole city that's called themselves the City of Halloween, right? Like, it takes over Conway and the Myrtle Beach area. They've leaned into it heavily. They got decorations all over the inside and outside of the stadium. You've got this jersey thing. I know for a fact, after we talked to Mike Uva on that interview, he said he was in touch with people at ESPN. He's got background in television. He said, I'm not going to tell them what to do, but I'm going to let them know everything that's going to happen so that they don't miss it. Well, they missed it. I mean, like, I rewound it because I got home a couple minutes after this one started, and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to see what they do. It's gonna be cool, whatever. And I'm like, all right, until they like got a close up of the jersey, you couldn't even tell it was different, right? I mean, like in the lights, it's not glow in the dark. So like, what is the difference? And you can see in this graphic, you can see a little bit of the pink, but even from here, you don't necessarily see a lot of it. Like they have actually a lot of the paint splotches on the shoulder crest with the logo. But again, in a picture like this in game action, you can't even see that. Yeah. So like there was no point where they had a little breakaway from the action and said, this is the jersey they're wearing tonight, and showed it in detail and talked about it. They do that stuff for a lot of other teams. Why didn't they do it for this? Do I think it hit as much as I was like hoping or maybe what I expected? No, to be honest, I thought it was going to be something that was going to be noticeable from, the people sitting at the tallest point of the stadium. And obviously, like we just talked about, that didn't happen. I still think it's a cool jersey. I just don't know if it was quite as obvious as I would think it was going to be something that slapped me in the face.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest.
I
mean, look, first of all, I don't think it's that cool of a jersey. I get it. Myrtle Beach, no stranger to spray painted T-shirts, right?
Right.
I just think if you're going to have a specialty jersey, especially around Halloween, that it would have been, like you said, significantly more noticeable if no one talked about it. Like you'd see it and like, oh, that's different. I don't know. Not a big fan of it, but hey, they win. So that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they brought the fire, the intensity, the atmosphere. I saw that a lot of students or fans in general were upset that more people didn't stay throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about, but I mean, I would say Coastal's probably the biggest like party school we have in the Sunbelt. They're, that's what they do. So if the party wasn't at the stadium, they were going to go find it. It seems like that's kind of what they did. It was the night before Halloween. Everyone's kind of dressed up, wants to be seen. I get it, right? It's a college campus. I will say, and Marv remembers this, the Halloween game in Boone, North Carolina in 2007.
Whew.
That was one of the best atmospheres in college football I've ever been a part of. I don't care how many people were in the stadium. All I know is that it was loud from the beginning to the end and seemed like nobody left. So, like, the party can be in the stadium. That is proof in the pudding there. It was a crazy atmosphere. And
that was actually on Halloween, though. I believe that was on the actual date of Halloween. I brought my cousin Gary to that game. He had never been to an App game, a lifelong Carolina fan. And I think it was after Brian Quick's first big touchdown, because that game went back and forth for a little while, and then App broke it open, and he was like, man, is it always like this in here? And I'm like, it's always fun, but this is on another level right now.
Yep. To this day, I don't care what anybody says, the Troy victory, all that stuff, that was the loudest and the craziest atmosphere I've ever been a part of in college football, because it was literally from beginning to end. It didn't feel like it slowed down because they put up 70 points. That helps, right? Like every time you turned around, points were being put on the board. It's just insanity.
The Richmond game, the semifinal game to go to Chattanooga that same year, when Armani went off for like 313 rushing yards, that and the Wofford game to me are like peak Kid Brewer, just electricity throughout the stadium.
Yep. I will definitely 100%. That's, to me, what's so funny is that's the only one that comes close.
Yeah, that's 1A and
that one was a little different. Yeah, it was just like colder. I feel like the Richmond game was colder, so it was just like everyone just wanted to be loud because it was so cold. Whereas Halloween was just like you were just drinking and just yelling because you could.
Yeah.
Artie Cat jumping in saying, hi, y'all. I saw Werewolf drinking a pina colada at Trader Vic's, and his hair was perfect, unlike these Coastal uniforms. Oh, man. He's going to take it out on everybody with how Texas State's.
Hey, but just real quick, talking about, we talked about JMU before this, and JMU, we had talked last week, who's going to keep pace with JMU? Who's going to give JMU a run for the money in the East? This was the game that kind of decided that. Coastal is kind of taking claim to that, and just looking ahead, they've got Georgia State at home this weekend, then Georgia Southern on the road, then they play South Carolina, then they play JMU. So, obviously a lot of football to be played, but they win those next 2 games, and then that game against James Madison is a de facto conference championship game to see who gets to play, represent the East.
True. And now, I'll jump into TJ's comment real quick. Coastal's a serial leave early student section. It's an epidemic. Wasn't the case from 2020 to 22, but we're reverting back to old habits. Yeah, I feel like if I had to say it, like, and this is a knock, but it's also the truth on Boone, is like everything's going on at the football stadium. You don't typically leave an app game early because parties are elsewhere. It's kind of, that is the party, right? Like that's the central hub of all of it. Coastal's probably not quite the same, right? Like if they're a party school, there's known places to go hang out and everything. So, whatever. I will say for the Coastal aspect, it'll be interesting to see if they do win these next 2 games, as you said, with the Georgia schools, what kind of attitude do they take into that South Carolina game, right? Like, we're going to throw everything at this and we're going to try and win because of what it means within the state itself. Or are we going to play, obviously, to win the game no matter what, but are we going to play where we're calling the dogs off a little earlier because we want our guys healthy and rested for a massive game against James Madison, right? Like, I really think they're going to have to think about what they want to do in that regard because, hey, you go full bore and you beat South Carolina in a tough game by 3 points, but then now you've got, 3 or 4 really important guys really banged up or definitely out for this massive matchup against James Madison.
Yeah, and I think it also depends. First of all, they got to beat the 2 Georgia teams, right? That's what they got to do to get to that point where they have to make that decision. It also depends on what South Carolina look like when they come in. Like South Carolina's not exactly having the best season.
Nope.
What do they look like coming into it? Me just thinking outside the box, like, yes, beating an SEC team, awesome. That's really good. But representing the East in a conference championship and having the opportunity to win that, I think in the grand scheme of things is significantly more important.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. The downside is for anybody who's just rooting for the sunbelt to make a college football playoff, I doubt many people are just rooting for the conference to have that happen. We are, because we cover all of them. But to some extent, nobody will have a chance to get in if Coastal takes them out. So that's an interesting aspect. I don't think anyone mostly cares about that, but
I don't think Coastal can make it with 3 losses.
No, there's no chance they'll make it in with the 3 losses. It's just they're just too bad of losses. To the Virginia one's fine. They could get in with just the Virginia loss. Actually, if they were undefeated besides the Virginia loss because of what Virginia's done,
getting blanked 38-0 by East Carolina. That's
that's
not going to help. Hey, last question on Coastal.
Yeah,
how cool is Tim Beck's seat right now? Everybody, 3 weeks ago was like,
I know
they go to Boone and lose, and then he's going to get fired, and I don't think that seat's that hot anymore.
No, it better not be. He just needed to find the right guy at the quarterback position. I think that's pretty obvious now. And the rest of the team has caught fire though too, right? They just weren't playing like this to start the season. Flat out, whatever that reason was, seems to have changed. But also Zach saying students usually leave at the half, but this time they left after the first quarter. I think part of it was like the buildup was so big and everybody put everything they had into it, and then they're like, I'm drained, but it's still kind of early. We want to do something. So he says the bars were absolutely packed.
And that's where they went.
So yeah, it's not a surprise, but all right, we spent enough time on that one, although it was probably the biggest one with the most intrigue, even going into the week anyway. We will jump over to the dismantling of the Warhawks by the Old Dominion Monarchs. They win this one 31-6. Quick note before I get Marv's thoughts. Go check out sunbeltsyndicate.com. We have wrapped up each and every game of the week for you in written form. So if you also want to check out our writers' thoughts, they've done a great job getting those things turned in, and we've gotten them pushed out for them, as well as, like I said, all of Zach's stuff. I don't know if it's going to take me till 3 a.m, but if it does, it will all be there for you to read before tip-off for your favorite Sunbelt team tomorrow in the MAC Sunbelt Challenge. All right, Marv, that's enough for me. Go ahead.
I mean, listen, there's not a lot of commentary that needs to happen on this one. Colton Joseph did Colton Joseph things, right? He was somewhat efficient, passing 12 for 22 for 231 yards, no passing touchdowns, but he does have 3 rushing TDs. That doesn't surprise anyone. All the credit goes to ODU's defense in this one. ULM was 0 for 13 on third down. 0 for 13 on third down. They could not sustain a drive. I think they were like 2 for 7 on fourth downs. They were forced to go for it a lot. They only had 11 first downs the entire game, and their only touchdown came with like 4 minutes left. So ODU's defense dominant. Colton Joseph doing what Colton Joseph does. I don't really have much more on that, man. 0 for 11 on third down. That's tough.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
but like you said, that was to me maybe the most surprising thing is that they didn't really hurt them much through the air. They didn't have to with the success they had running throughout the roster, but it's kind of a weird game, right? Like ODU jumped out to that 17-point lead in the first quarter, and then it was very just kind of bland. Yeah, just for both teams, really. Like
they didn't have to do anything else after that. I think they realized the way their defense was playing and the way ULM couldn't sustain a drive. It's like we don't have to do much right now. We can just don't turn the ball over, don't give up a big play, and we're good.
Yeah. Aiden Armenta did return for ULM, 12 of 20 for 150, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Landon Graves also got back into the game, went 1 for 1 for just 11 yards. But again, we just know the quarterback position not the strongest for the Warhawks this season. Zach Palmer-Smith did run for 96 yards, so he's still having a really impressive outing for the year. Braylon McReynolds held in check, though. He's only carried the ball 7 times for 14 yards. That's a 2-yard average. That's well below his norm there. So just a note on the ULM side. I will say, to me, the best thing in this game for ULM was the jerseys. I love those ones. All maroon, the helmet with the state logo, and Warhawks across there. I like that. I think it's a sharp look. I like ODU's. I'm a sucker for the light blue and the dark blue, which is hilarious because I love it on ODU. I'm a Carolina hater, right? But they do that same thing with the two-tone blue colors. I love the look, but they actually wore the white in this one.
It's the stigma about the Carolina stuff that you don't like.
Yeah, exactly. But I do like the two-tone blue look, and they use that quite well over there. ODU, again, they wore the white jerseys with the white helmets this time around. But, not much more to talk about, like you said, in this one. I mean, you can't talk too much when it's 31-6, right?
Yeah, I mean, once again, the one thing that sticks out, 0 for 11. That's just you can't win a football game like that. You can't when your defense is on the field that much, and your offense is that limited. You just can't win.
Yeah, very, very tough to do so. All right. In a game that was one of the better games of the weekend, it didn't look like it was going to be when it first started out, but Marv, the Cajuns go down to Mobile and get the victory 31-22 over the Jags. I'm guessing you were a little impressed with how Lunch Winfield performed in this one.
14 for 15. That's not terrible, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, carried the ball for another 45 yards and another touchdown. 14 for 15. That's pretty darn efficient. That's getting it done. They ran the ball 46 times for 160 yards, so he didn't have to throw that much more than that. But, I'm sure there's, the old cliche, there's one pass that he wish he could have back. But, yeah, that's a pretty efficient game. And listen, Louisiana scores 21 straight points to just really kind of take command of what was a close ball game. Statistically, it was really even, right? Just that 3 touchdown stretch, South Alabama couldn't come back from it.
Yeah, this is this one team that actually overcame the odds and actually performed better than the team that won in the second half. That was the South Alabama Jaguars, who scored 15 points in the second half to Louisiana's 7. And they played a lot better. I mean, if they'd played like that, we'd have had one heck of a game on our hands. Unfortunately, they were the tale of two halves and just not quite enough at the end. But this one did look like it was going to be a rout until that happened. So credit to South Alabama. I've said it all season. They're not as bad as their record looks because they will come at you the entire time whether they look like they're going to win or not. They are not going to stop trying to score the ball. And they did that exact same thing here. Bishop Davenport, 20 of 33, 203 yards, just one touchdown and one interception. So not the greatest of games, but definitely did enough to kind of keep his team in position to be dangerous there. Jeremy Scott did have 102 yards through the air, 17-yard average there. So
just to be outdone by Shelton Sampson over on the UL side, 6 catches, 138, both of Lunch Winfield's touchdowns. So, listen, close game, right? It's one of those where the records didn't indicate, how good of a game it was going to be, but 21 unanswered points, a little day late and a dollar short on the comeback effort there for the South Alabama.
Yeah, and the same type of thing was happening in this game that happened at Coastal, right? But this one was a little bit different reasoning because their team was getting beat. Lots of people started leaving the stadium, and then they started doing this little comeback, and you go, people might have left a little early. But, yeah, they didn't quite complete it. But, the one other note I want to make, Lunch Winfield, that 14 of 15, becomes the most efficient game at quarterback position in Louisiana football history, who just beat out Chandler Fields, who I believe was – 20-something of – I think he had like 2 incompletions previous to this. So Lunch Winfield now overtakes that title, but Lunch gave him a shout-out on Twitter because I believe he thinks and knows that, without Fields being there, maybe he doesn't play the way he does, and learned what he did from that great Chandler Fields that was just leaving Louisiana last season. So yeah, great outing from him. He continues to kind of evolve his game and be the guy there for the Cajuns moving forward. All right, I'm going to get into Ben's comment here because he had this one a little bit earlier, but he says Saturday was the first time since 2011 that the Red Wolves team held an FBS team under 200 yards, which was Memphis. And it's the first time since 2006 that the Red Wolves held a sunbelt team under 200 yards, which was FIU when they were still in the Sun Belt. This time, they do that to the Trojans of Troy and win this game 23-10. If my memory serves correctly, the Trojans were actually favored coming into this game on the betting line. But what did you see in this one?
Well, yeah. Listen, with Southern Miss being idle, we talked last week that someone had to kind of step up and who's going to challenge them. And Troy came in undefeated in conference play. They were 4-0. But now, obviously, Arkansas State, quote-unquote, ties them, but they'd have the heads up with the head-to-head record. We alluded to earlier in the podcast, 12 tackles for loss and 9 sacks. And Ben kind of nailed it. Troy was limited to 187 yards of total offense and only 21 rushing. You can't win a game like that. And the Arkansas State defense just said, hey, we live in your backfield. Your quarterback is going to the ground a lot, and you're not going to be able to run the football on us. And when you do try to pass it, guess what? We're going to tackle your quarterback. That's the story of the game, honestly, is the Arkansas State defense. Jalen Rader had a great game, 21 of 29 for 247 and 2 touchdowns. But, man, that Arkansas State defense just gave them nothing.
Yeah, which to me was the more surprising part was not only – as Warren says, Tay Meadows returned, right? Who's their all-everything player that they've had. He was out last week, returned this week, only went 14 carries for 48 yards. So definitely kept him in check. And Lovett, who spelled him last week when he was out, didn't quite get it done because he went out on the second play of the game, as Warren said. I didn't realize it was quite that early, but he did get 2 carries for 6 yards before going out. But it seemed like it didn't matter who they were going to throw in there.
Yeah,
Red Wolves were just ready for him, and that's what happened in that one. And Ben saying second most sacks in program history. Sam Talk Sports jumping on as a Boise State fan. They unfortunately dropped their game against Fresno State. Asked Georgia Southern about how those guys over there in California look. But Boise says he feels that Madsen went down on the third drive and the offense went down with him. So, yeah, when your top players go down, it's hard to swallow and hard to get over unless you have, like Warren said, you got to have your O-line do stuff for them, right? Like they're playmakers. You just put the ball in their hands. They should be able to make plays. But the problem with that is they have to have the space to do so. And that's what the Red Wolves were not giving not an inch. So really impressive outing for them. Let's see. Tucker Kilgris was also really held in check with the rushing, right? Like, even if he doesn't get it done in the passing game, which he did 19 of 34, 166, so, and no touchdowns to just one interception. But usually if that's going to happen, he's getting some pretty good stuff on the ground, chunk plays, stuff like that. He had negative 27 yards rushing.
Yeah, keep in mind some of those are sack yardage that he lost.
Yes.
Even passing, his average completion was 4.9 yards. Just a hard day for the offensive line and anyone in the backfield for Troy. Really had the opportunity. They win that game. They're still undefeated in conference. But now it's been alluded to it, and I know we don't want to jump ahead too much, but pretty big football game coming up this weekend.
Yes, there is a big one between the Red Wolves and the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss. Let me see if I can put this.
And they get national TV for that one, 12 o'clock on the U.
Ooh, gotta like that.
Yeah.
I think we'll make this any bigger. Let's see. Maybe a little bit. Kinda. All right. Well, Texas State, you're almost out, so we'll put you out of this graphic for now in the standings anyway. Sorry. Sorry. But I know, but we got to do it so that you can see this at least a little bit better here. All right. Coming in at 5-0 in the East, James Madison sits atop, the only undefeated team in the East. Well, now, after the game we just spoke about, we only have one undefeated team left in the West as well, with Southern Miss sitting there at 4-0. Arkansas State and Troy now tied, technically, at 4-1, but we know Arkansas State easily has the tiebreaker with the head-to-head victory. In second place, all by their lonesome now, after beating Marshall at home, Coastal Carolina in the East. So that's how things are looking now, Marv. What some thoughts on that? I mean,
well, kind of like we alluded to in the East. I mean, Coastal has an opportunity with their next two games. They get the bottom two teams in the East in their next two games to set up a huge matchup the last weekend of the season with James Madison. And then Southern Miss and Arkansas State, obviously the biggest game of the week this week for the sunbelt, because Southern Miss wins that game, then they probably, I don't want to say coast, but they've got the upper hand, right? But one thing that jumps out to me on that page, points allowed. James Madison has only allowed 129 points. And when you don't allow a team to score for 4 consecutive games in the second half, that helps you. But, man, no one scored more points than them. Actually, let me take a look. Okay, ODU has scored a little bit more points, but, man, they are by and away allowing the least amount of points in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting about that point, it's a really good one, especially like you said, with all the shutouts they've pulled in the second half. The team that's closest to them in shutting people down is Southern Miss. And if that ends up being the matchup, JMU versus Southern Miss, I think we're going to be in for a really good defensive game, but also have the offenses who really have the ability to put points on the board. So I just think that would be a great matchup. I think a lot of us, and I think we alluded to this last time, Marv was like, that Southern Miss Marshall matchup would be primo television, storyline, drama, whatever you want to call it.
If it was in Huntington, that would be.
If it was in Huntington, yeah. I would still say I'll take it anywhere, right? Like just to see it. But yes, if it would have been in Huntington, West Virginia, then it would have been all eyes on that. I think there's people that if they heard and understood that storyline that would turn away from some of the bigger championship games just to see the Sunbelts because of what could go on and off the field. But I don't think we're going to see that matchup. In fact, I'd say at this point, you can't see that matchup with Marshall already having 2 losses. JMU is going to struggle to lose 1, it looks like at this point. So we'll see. Crazier things have happened. We've seen them in the past, but
yeah, I'm just peeking here to see who JMU has left. They do have Marshall this week, then then out of conference, Washington State, and obviously Coastal at the end. So, they don't have the easiest path. I mean, I think Marshall. They're away at Marshall. That could be a super tough game. And then App's got something for going to JMU and winning, especially when they're ranked, which they could be if they beat Marshall. And then I guess the Washington State game is a who really cares game, but then they'd have to go on the road to Coastal. So they just got to take care of business.
Yeah, and JMU seems to have Coastal's number. I know that's going to be the one that comes up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, there's history to prove that JMU has Coastal's number, so that'll be interesting if it does come down to that. It kind of it's always the end of the season that those two seem to match up, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, Sam's saying it. JMU's got a legit shot if the AAC or the American keeps eating itself, which they've done pretty well so far. But here's the downside, right? Like that Washington State matchup before the season starts, you think, wow, that could be really meaningful. It's meaningless.
4-5 right now.
4-5. They just lost to the team that App State beat in Oregon State. So that's not a good loss to have as they come in closer to this game. Obviously, they have time to win other games before they get up there to JMU, but it's not one that's going to give the Dukes any pretty points. What do you want to call that?
Yeah, and this is really funny. I'm looking at this. Oregon State and Washington State play each other twice this year.
Yes. Yeah, they had to do that because they don't have a conference. So until the Pac-12 comes back next year.
That is
a weird thing.
I was looking at the schedule. I was like, is that a typo? Let me click on Oregon State schedule. No, they play each other twice.
Yeah, I think was it home and away, some kind of agreement.
But I mean, it kind of goes back to we were talking about Coastal. If Coastal wins the next two games, what's your mentality when you go into the South Carolina game? Yep. I think it has a bigger implication on JMU if they go to the Washington State game and they're 9-1, ranked, looking at a playoff berth, like knowing that you have a de facto conference championship game the following week, like you still got to go all out in that Washington State game because you're fighting for more than a conference championship at that point.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they have to play every game like that, whereas Coastal says, hey, we're not going to the CFP, but
we can reserve everything for you, James Madison, but JMU, you might have a little bit more on the line there on a national scale, and you have to be interesting. They still got 2 weeks to take care of business before they even have to think about that. And obviously, it's a pretty important game.
Yes. Yeah. Founding Fathers. What do they call that one? Oh, man. Going blank. There's a guy who wanted to start something on Twitter last year with that matchup, and I can't remember off the top of my head.
What, JMU Marshall?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to Google it real quick.
The spread on that game right now is JMU's favored by 13.5 on the road.
Yeah, that's tough.
Hey, listen, Sunbelt gets 2 national spotlight games at 12 o'clock on Saturday. JMU Marshall on ESPN2 and Southern Miss Arkansas State on ESPNU. So pretty cool to see the Sunbelt getting some love. So we'll have 3 consecutive national TV games with Georgia Southern App State getting the ESPN 2 Thursday night game. So pretty cool.
I like that. That's awesome. Yeah. Very, very good.
And obviously Thursday night's a pretty big rivalry game. I hear that Georgia Southern doesn't like App too much, and I can tell you the App State fans don't really like Georgia Southern either. So that'll with the teams coming in at 3-5 and 4-4, it doesn't matter in this game, right? It's hate week, as we like to call it.
Yes, that's true. I know what the rivalry is going to be known as, or what they're trying to get it started with, is battle for the gavel, because of the founding fathers aspect to what they've done and all that. But yeah, it's a cool name for a rivalry, and I think, if I remember right, the guy on Twitter wants to get a trophy involved with this and everything, which also makes sense. I think those are 2 teams that make sense to match up, kind of like that rivalry game. They already have the royal rivalry with ODU, but that one seems to be more thought of in one direction. I don't know if JMU reciprocates quite as much hate and everything towards ODU as ODU does towards them. So maybe if this one with Marshall works out, that works. And I don't know. But it's all meaningless unless the Sun Belt brings back rivalry week like the rest of college football. We've had some aspects when we've done it smartly and we've done it pretty well for the most part. It's never been great all the way across the board. We don't have some historic rivalries like we do with some teams like App and Georgia Southern, who brought it over from a previous conference. Because App and Marshall used to be a pretty historic rivalry back in FCS days, but that has kind of since dwindled. I mean, obviously the older fans in both fan bases don't care for each other and remember all those days. Younger fans have no idea these teams even played, right? Until you tell them that there's history and there's hatred, it doesn't really add up for them. So I think we got to find some of this stuff, lean on it, and just bring a little bit more attention to some of our rivalries and that make them matter a little bit more, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
I was surprised to see App and Georgia Southern not playing the last weekend of the year. Also, I have very bad flashback memories to the last time that App State and Georgia Southern played on a Thursday night.
It was also in Boone, right?
It was also in Boone. And, don't want to talk about it. Try to block. It was Halloween night, actually, because I was walking around with my kids watching the game on my phone as I was supposed to be a good dad trick-or-treating and just screaming at my phone.
Oh man, yeah. I'm glad that Halloween was Friday and not Thursday, because I'd have been doing the same thing. I'd be like, all right, we'll walk around with you, buddy. But I'd been streaming that Coastal game against Marshall, and I would have been like, by the halftime, I'd have been like, why am I not home watching this?
Yeah. I luckily pretty early around here, 8:30 or so. You only really missed the first quarter, maybe part of the second. But I'm with you. But no, rivalry week is important to me, and I think it should be important to a lot of folks. So I get it. You want App and Georgia Southern. That's a great Thursday night game, but last week of the season is when that game should happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I will say, though, the interesting aspect, I asked this before the season started, of Rayner returning home, right? Like he came from Winston-Salem area for high school. He knows a lot of people who go to App, former schoolmates of his or friends or maybe even family members. So he will have a large contingent, and that will make that Arkansas State matchup pretty interesting regardless of the situation. But as Marv and I were talking about before the show started, could come down for App's bowl possibilities to have to win that game. And it could come down to Arkansas State being involved in a West race where they have to win that game. So it could be a really meaningful game. It just kind of may work out in the end. But yeah, you're right now. You're looking at it going, I don't know. There's not really any history between those two teams other than playing each other a couple times. So
yeah, I don't think there's hatred. Right. As an App fan, like I don't hate Arkansas State. We just don't have enough history there. We haven't played them consistently in enough meaningful games for there to be like some kind of grudge against them. But hey, it's the weekend after Thanksgiving. There's always a great time to be in Boone and watch a football game. And Arkansas State's playing good football right now, so that should be a good one.
Yeah, I usually miss that one. I usually go up north to see the family. We are not going to do that this year, so this will be the first Thanksgiving weekend game that I'll see in forever, and maybe for some time.
Warren has a phenomenal question.
He does. Do you want to take a shot at that first, or you want me to go?
I mean, logically, I could see JMU's coach going to VTech. It's close. I don't know if he wants that rebuild that would have to happen there, but here, I don't think any Sunbelt coach is going to get those marquee openings that have happened in the SEC, right? I don't see anyone going to Florida. I don't see anyone going to LSU. I don't see anyone going to Penn State, honestly. But I think Virginia Tech or Auburn could a really good Sunbelt coach get a look at that?
Well, I think it's a trick question. And I'll say that because there was already all kinds of rumors that Kenny could be on his way out of Texas State, but Texas State's also on their way out. So is that, how do you phrase that? Are you considering Kenny a Sun Belt coach until they're officially out of the conference or what? But I would say that that's the one that to me is most logical. I know it hasn't worked out on the win-loss record, But he's brought in really talented players, and he's known as a really good recruiter. And he's also young, which helps in recruiting. So he's also got that vibrant personality to win guys over. The rumor was Oklahoma State. Who knows what's happening there, because they're not going to announce that kind of stuff till closer.
I was here Baylor for a while as well.
Yeah, and that would make sense too, right? Because he stays down there in Texas. Oklahoma State's not too far away. I don't know exactly where he's from, but I think he's from Texas. But it'd be interesting to see if it's him. I think, honestly, you're probably not going to get the flash in the pan with Coach Huff, like, leaving right away. But that's a name in the future that I think builds up, kind of like Napier. Like, okay, he's done this 2 or 3 years now. At some point he's going to get a shot. He's from down in that area. He recruits well in those areas. Yeah, he's getting the job done. I kind of like what he said. I know some people took offense to it when he said, if we lose out the rest of the way and end up playing a bowl game in where did he say? Oh, Shreveport, which people in Shreveport took offense to. He's like, I'm just throwing that out there because that's the bowl you're put in when you're about 500 as a bowl team, right? It wasn't a shot at Shreveport. It was a shot on the fact that if we don't win out the rest of our games, our fans aren't going to care, and they're not going to go to this bowl game. They're going to go to a bowl game when we're 9-2 or 10-1 or whatever the good record is. They will travel and support you. They're not going to care if you're 6-6 because of how you started. I'm not saying any year they won, but he makes a good point. And I like that fact that his drive as a coach, he knows that, right? Like, he's not sending it in, mailing it in. Like, no, we have to continue winning every single game, or else these other wins are kind of meaningless. And it's true. We've seen it. I mean, look at all, like, we're just talking about all those coaching openings that you mentioned. Those are coaches that were expected to win games, and they're not doing it. That's why they find themselves out of a job. I will say, I've heard James Franklin strongly connected to Virginia Tech, so we'll see if that happens, because that's interesting. And I do agree with you that I don't see Penn State giving Chesney the job at all, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear him interviewing there. He's from that area. He could probably recruit that area very well. Yet again, another kind of younger guy who's also had success. I just don't see Penn State giving a massive contract to somebody like that just yet.
No, they're going to go. They've got the money. They're going to go get a big name. That they really are.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. I
thought Cincinnati would have been their guy from Indiana, and then Indiana threw bucket loads of all the cash in the state at him. Yeah,
shout out to him, man. He's not kidding when he says he just wins. That guy is getting it done. They don't just beat teams, right? Like, it'd be one thing to just keep winning. He keeps hammering teams. Yes. That roster is just dismantling their opponents. So, to me, if you put their record or their schedule up against Ohio State's, I'm not sure how you don't have Indiana 1 right now, right? Like, I think Indiana's played.
They'll get a chance. They'll get a chance to play each other.
Yeah, they will. I'm going to be all eyes on the TV on that one, even if it's not a sunbelt game. I don't care. I'll be watching that one because that's got a lot of intrigue going around with it. All right, I think that one about wraps it up. In some ways, these 5-game weekends or weeks, as this one was, are fun because there's not a whole lot to have to do. But, like, also it feels like why isn't there more? In some regards, you're like, well, why didn't this feel like a more substantive week in some regards? But hey,
I mean, listen, there's only 5 games. There's only 5 games this week, but most of them have big implications, right? Like, App Southern, hate week. As an App fan, you want to keep that bowl chance alive. You got to win. If Georgia Southern loses, then they're pretty much eliminated from playing in the bowl. James Madison Marshall, massive game. JMU's got to keep the train on the tracks. They got to keep going. Southern Miss Arkansas State, we've already talked about it. Whoever wins that game is the number 1 team on that side. If it's Southern Miss, then they're 2 games up on Arkansas State and a game up on Troy with a win over Troy. Coastal Georgia State, Coastal's got to keep pace with JMU. They've got to go win that game. So there's a lot of games with a ton of implication this week. So even though some of the records don't match up, you might look at a 1-7 Georgia State against 5-3 Coastal and say, it's not that important of a game. It is for Coastal. It is for the East. So plenty of intrigue, even though there's not a ton of games. But 60% of our games getting a national TV spot this week.
Don't hate that. That's going to be awesome. Sam wants to know who's our favorite viewer. Why is it him? And he said, y'all have a good night. You got a lot of work to do to catch up to Ben and Artie, man. But we've got a couple other. Warren's been on here a lot lately, too. Neil's always shouting us out, even if he's not watching live. He's usually commenting to me something in the background. So we've got a lot of good viewers, and I appreciate Sam jumping in here. And, yeah, we're just going to keep this thing rolling. Are you going Thursday night, by the way?
Absolutely.
Nice. We gotta talk about that, but we'll do that in a second after we wrap it up here. Thanks for watching and checking us out, and we'll see you guys next week to wrap up more Sunbelt action.
See y'all.